I brought my kids gifts from my work trip: a $1,200 designer backpack, limited edition chocolates, and new phones. After family dinner, they disappeared. Then my fiance's son posted selfies with the bag. I called my fiance. He liked it more, so I gave him everything. That's when I lost it. My name is Melvin, and when this happened, I was 36, overworked, overbooked, and still dumb enough to believe love could smooth over disrespect if I just kept being patient. I was a hair colorist at a luxury salon in Charlotte. That sounded glamorous to people who had never stood for 10 hours straight, while a woman in a cream cashmere set cried because her beige blonde looked emotionally flat. My job was half chemistry, half therapy, half standing under bright lights, pretending I had not skipped lunch again. Yes, that was three halves. That was also how my life felt. I was good at my job because I stayed calm. A bride could panic over highlights. A client could accuse humidity of sabotage. A rich man could show me a photo of a movie star and ask if I could make him look expensive but approachable. I stayed calm through all of it. That skill was the only reason I did not throw a wine glass through my own kitchen window the night my fiance told me she had given my children's gifts to her son, because, in her exact words, he liked it more. So I gave him everything. Everything. A $1,200 designer backpack I had bought for my daughter. Limited edition imported chocolates for my son. Two new phones I had saved for. All of it gone after dinner. And I did not find out because she confessed like a decent person. I found out because her son posted mirror selfies with the backpack like he had won it in a raffle for being the world's smudgiest teenager. That was the night my engagement ended. Not with shouting first, not with broken plates, not with one big movie speech. It ended with my daughter going quiet. My son saying exactly one savage thing at exactly the right moment. And me finally realizing I had not been building a blended family. I had been financing one. I had just gotten back from a 4-day work trip in New York. A hair industry work trip is not glamorous in the way people imagine. There are no rooftop martinis and no flirty little shopping montages where I spin in the mirror wearing a scarf and discover myself. It is mostly hotel conference rooms, heavily caffeinated educators, product demonstrations, and adults arguing with frightening sincerity over whether cool mushroom brunette is still peaking or starting to die. Still, it had been a good trip. I had picked up new techniques, booked 2 bridal referrals, and sold enough future color packages to justify the whole thing. I worked hard. I made good money. Not private jet money, but enough that I could spoil my kids sometimes without pretending it was reckless. And I liked doing that. I had 2 kids. Nolan, 14, sarcastic, smart, impossible to embarrass for long, and built like a hoodie with opinions. And Iris, 11, quiet, observant, and so careful with other people's feelings that it sometimes broke my heart to watch. She drew constantly, whole tiny worlds in pencil. She noticed colors in evening clouds. She apologized when she needed new markers. Their mother had moved to Arizona years earlier for work and slowly faded into one of those parents who always meant well in theory and rarely followed through in practice. No huge scandal, no dramatic betrayal, just absence with decent manners. So I became the default parent for everything. School forms, homework meltdowns, dentist appointments, night fevers, birthday cakes, laundry, fear, comfort. All of it. And on that trip, I had bought them gifts. Real ones. For Iris, I found a designer backpack she had once shown me online, and then immediately said, "It's okay, Dad. I know it's too much." She had said that in the bright, casual tone children use when they are already trying not to cost you too much. That tone always got to me. The bag was cream and caramel, part of a limited collection, beautiful and absurdly expensive. Exactly the kind of thing I loved giving her, because she never demanded anything twice. For Nolan, I bought 2 boxes of limited edition chocolates from a place in Soho, because my son had somehow become the type of teenager who had opinions about bitterness, cocoa origin, and whether sea salt caramel was trying too hard. He once told me a candy bar from the grocery store was fine, but emotionally unserious. I had no idea how I had raised a tiny divorced food critic, but I admired his range. And for both of them, Because their old phones were hanging on by pure resentment, I bought new phones. Not the most expensive models on earth. I am a hair colorist, not a Bond villain. But good phones. Solid phones. Phones that would make them happy. I wrapped everything at the hotel before I flew home. That should tell you what kind of father I was. I had already been standing all day, my feet were throbbing, and I still sat on hotel carpet stuffing tissue paper into gift bags because I wanted them to have that moment, that little intake of breath, that smile, that quick, bright look kids get when they feel chosen. Instead, I got lasagna and theft. My fiancée, Rhea, was already home when I arrived. We had been together for 3 years and engaged for 8 months. She was 39, polished, attractive, and very good at sounding reasonable while shifting reality 3 inches to the left. When I met her, I mistook that for emotional maturity. It was not. It was presentation. She worked in medical sales, wore soft, neutral colors like they were a religion, and had that smooth, controlled way of speaking that made people assume she was the calmest person in the room. And she could be calm as long as calm benefited her. She also had a son, Jace, who was 17 and had the exact energy of a boy who had never once heard the word no from the only person whose opinion mattered to him. He was not openly vicious. That would have been easier. He was slick. He smirked instead of insulted. He implied instead of said. He made little comments that could always be defended as jokes if anyone objected. He treated Nolan like they were in a competition Nolan had not agreed to enter. He treated Iris like she was faintly amusing background material. He treated my home like a place that existed to supply him with Wi-Fi, protein, and cash flow. Every time I brought up an issue, Rhea had a translation ready. He's blunt. He's still adjusting. You know how boys are. He doesn't mean it the way it sounds. Amazing how much damage can be done under the protection of he doesn't mean it like that. If Jace snapped at someone, he was stressed. If Nolan snapped back, we needed to discuss respect. If Iris got quiet, she was sensitive. If Jace disappeared with headphones in and ignored everyone, he was just being 17. It always tilted one direction. My children had to be flexible. Her son had to be accommodated. At first, I told myself this was normal blended family tension. Then I started paying for it. That was the part I should have recognized sooner. When I walked in, Iris ran to hug me first. That alone told me she had missed me more than she had been saying over text. I held her close and smelled shampoo, paper, and the faint vanilla spray she had recently discovered, and was applying with the confidence of a child who thinks perfume is basically magic. Nolan came in slower, because teenage boys would rather be hit by a bus than look too emotional in the foyer. But his whole face changed when he saw me. "Did you bring snacks?" he asked. I set my suitcase down. "Wow. Not hello, Dad. I missed you." Straight to snacks. He shrugged. "I knew you'd come back." The snacks were the mystery. From the kitchen, Jace said without looking up from his phone, "That's fair." Annoyingly, it was. Iris smiled. "Did you really make people watch you talk about hair all weekend?" I put a hand over my heart. First of all, other people talk about hair. I watch and judge. That is how professionals grow. Nolan nodded. King of bleach. Emperor of toner. Duke of split ends. Jace snorted. Even Rhea smiled from the kitchen. For a few minutes, it felt normal. That was important, because part of why I had stayed as long as I had was that there were always moments like that. Quick, easy, almost family moments that made me doubt my own discomfort. I kept telling myself the tension was manageable, that every home had rough edges, that if I just kept steady, kept generous, kept mature, things would settle. The problem was that everything only stayed smooth when my children gave ground. If Nolan made a joke, he needed to watch his tone. If Jace made one, we all needed to lighten up. If Iris wanted something, we needed to think about fairness. If Jace wanted something, we needed to think about his confidence. And because I made more money than Rhea, those little fairness talks started drifting toward my wallet. At first, it was subtle. Could I cover more of the groceries for a while? Could I help with Jace's laptop since his school needed something stronger? Could I pick up his exam fees since I understood how important opportunities are? Could I maybe take care of the car insurance difference this month because her bonus was delayed? There is a kind of exploitation that never arrives wearing a villain costume. It arrives with numbers, timing, and a tired face. It arrives sounding practical. It arrives wrapped in togetherness. And if you are the kind of person who solves problems automatically, you mistake it for partnership. That was my mistake. Dinner was lasagna from Ria's mother. Now, I am not a cruel man, but I will say this with complete honesty. That woman seasoned food like she was resolving personal grudges. Everything she made tasted aggressive. We sat down. Ria at one end, me at the other, Iris beside me, Nolan across from Jace. Nolan took one look at the lasagna and whispered, "Why is it reflective?" I choked on my own laugh. Iris kicked him under the table. "Be nice." Jace said, "Some people just aren't used to homemade food." Nolan looked up. "Some people aren't used to seasoning." I looked down at my plate immediately, because if I met anybody's eyes, I was done. Ria gave me a sharp look. "Do not encourage him." "I'm silent," I said. "You're grinning." "I'm grieving privately." That got Iris laughing so hard she almost dropped her fork. Even Jace nearly smiled. For a little while, dinner stayed harmless. School talk? My trip. The dog refusing to eat one brand of food, but inhaling another like he had class preferences. I let myself relax. That was my second mistake of the night. Then Ria asked how New York had gone, and I said it had been good, that I'd made some useful contacts, and that I had picked up a few nice things for the kids. Jace looked up from his phone. What kind of things? The question could have been innocent from almost anyone else. From him, it sounded like inventory. "Just some stuff," I said. "Bag, chocolates, phones." Nolan froze mid-bite. "Phones?" Iris's eyes went huge. "Dad." Then Ria said too quickly, "Phones?" That was the moment everything shifted. Not because of the word itself, because of how she said it. Not delighted for my children. Not surprised. Calculating. I watched her do the math in real time. How much did that cost? What would Jace think? What would he get? How was this going to look? Nothing good has ever followed the second an adult hears your child is getting something nice and immediately starts worrying about another child's entitlement. "After dinner," I said lightly. Jace leaned back in his chair. "What kind of bag?" "For Iris." He smirked. "Hopefully better than that little cartoon one she drags everywhere." Iris went still. It was a rainbow canvas bag she loved. She used it for sketchbooks and library books. It wasn't expensive. It was hers. Nolan looked at him and said, "Imagine being 17 and beefing with a tote bag." "Enough," Ria snapped. To Nolan. Of course, never to Jace. That was another tiny thing I had trained myself not to notice. Small things become systems if you leave them alone long enough. After dinner, I helped clear the table. That is one of my less glamorous flaws. Put me in a tense room near dirty dishes, and my body will start cleaning before my brain has finished processing betrayal. Iris went to feed the dog. Nolan took out the trash. Jace disappeared upstairs. Ria stayed in the kitchen with me. For a minute, it was just running water and the clink of plates. Then she said casually, "Phones?" I kept rinsing dishes. "Yes." "For both of them?" "Yes." "That's a lot." "It is. You didn't mention you were spending that kind of money." I smiled without looking at her. I didn't know I needed budget approval to buy gifts for my kids. She dried a glass very carefully. "Jace still has that cracked screen." There it was. "He does." I said, "He needs a new one. So buy him one." Her mouth tightened. "You know I had that insurance deductible last month." "Yes," I said, "and I know I covered half of it." "That's unfair." "No," I said, "it's accurate. People who rely on your generosity hate hearing it described plainly. Accuracy sounds like accusation when they have been living on blurred lines." She set the towel down. "I'm just saying, it creates a weird dynamic. A weird dynamic is not created because a father buys gifts for his own children. If one kid gets nothing while the others get expensive things, yes, it does. Then that kid's parent should handle it." She folded her arms. "I'm trying to build one family here." "No," I said. "You're trying to redistribute my parenting." That landed. Her face flattened. Then came her favorite fallback. "You always assume the worst where Jace is concerned." I almost said, "He keeps giving me material." Instead, I said, "Let's not do this tonight." She smiled that tight smile, that never meant peace and always meant delayed damage. Fine. Nobody has ever said fine like that and meant anything good. I went upstairs to get the gifts. My closet door was open. At first, that meant nothing. Closet's open. That is one of their defining talents. Then I looked at the shelf. Empty. The matte black gift bags were gone. All of them. I stood there for a second, trying to do the stupid, hopeful mental check. Did I leave them in the car? No. Did I move them to the bathroom for some reason? No. Had I developed travel amnesia? Also, no. I went back downstairs. Has anyone seen the gift bags from my closet? I asked. Nolan looked up from the couch. What gift bags? The ones I brought back. Iris frowned. Didn't you put them upstairs? I did. Rhea stepped out of the kitchen, drying her hands. What's wrong? The gift bags are gone. She blinked. Gone where? That is what I am asking. Jace came down the stairs right then, phone in hand, wearing an expression that was maybe supposed to read innocent, but mostly read rehearsed. My body knew before my brain admitted it. Jace, I said, did you go into my closet? He looked offended on cue. Why would I go into your closet? Because my kids' gifts are missing. He shrugged. Maybe they moved him. Nolan stood up immediately. We didn't touch anything. I didn't say you did. You literally just implied it. Enough, I snapped. Rhea stepped forward, all soothing voice and managerial posture. Everyone calm down. I'm sure there's an explanation. Then explain it, I said. She looked at me, then away. And right then my phone buzzed. Instagram notification from Jace's account. I almost ignored it. Then I opened it, and there he was. Mirror selfie in the upstairs hallway, my daughter's designer backpack over one shoulder. A smirk on his face, like he had just signed with an agency. Second photo, one of Nolan's chocolate boxes open on his bed. Third photo, the phone boxes. Caption, when stepdad finally gets taste right. The room went silent. Not dramatic silent, real silent. The kind where everyone has heard the truth at once. Nolan stared at my phone. You have got to be kidding me. Iris didn't say anything. She just looked down. That was the worst part. Not the bag, not the caption, not even the theft. Her face, that quick collapse kids do when they understand they've just been publicly moved beneath someone else in the room. I looked at Jace, then at Rhea, and she actually said it. He liked it more, so I gave him everything. Like that explained anything. Like desire created ownership. Like my children were optional recipients in their own home. Nolan said, you gave him our stuff? Iris whispered. Why? That one word cut harder than yelling would have. Rhea made a small, impatient gesture. He was excited. I didn't think it was that serious. I turned to her very slowly. That serious? She opened her hands. Melvin, come on. I think she thought this was one of those moments she could narrate back into normal. A misunderstanding. A household bump. An unfortunate but manageable thing. It wasn't. Because in that moment, I saw all of it. Every time my kids had been told to be understanding. Every time Jace had been excused. Every time money entered the room and somehow bent toward him. Every time Rhea had acted like my generosity was a household asset instead of something I was choosing to give. This was not one bad decision. This was the clearest version of the truth. Bring me every item, I said. Jace laughed once. Relax. It's not that serious. Nolan took one step toward him and I put my arm out without even looking. No. Then to Jace. Upstairs. Everything. Now. He didn't move. He looked at his mother. That told me everything I needed to know about how things worked in that house when I wasn't directly watching. Rhea touched his arm. Melvin, don't make this bigger than it is. I looked at her. Bigger, I said. You stole gifts from my children, handed them to your son, and let him post about it online before my kids even saw them. In what universe is that small? He was excited. They were not yours to give. We're trying to blend this family. No, I said. You're using blending as a discount code. Even in the middle of that moment, Nolan made a noise that was half cough, half laugh. Jace rolled his eyes. It's literally just a bag. I turned to him. It is literally theft. I was going to share the chocolates. Nolan said. How generous of the burglar. Do not call him a burglar. Rhea snapped. He posted the evidence, Nolan shot back. At minimum, he's an influencer thief. I had to look away because if I made eye contact with my son right then, I would laugh and lose the little control I still had. Rhea tried another angle. Soft voice, hurt face, adult tone. I just didn't think it was fair for there to be such a huge difference. I looked at her. Difference? Yes. You brought expensive gifts for your kids and nothing for him. That sentence snapped something clean in me. Difference, I said, calm now, is me paying 2/3 of the mortgage in this house. Difference is me covering groceries when your commissions dip. Difference is me paying for Jace's laptop upgrade, his senior trip deposit, his exam fees, and half your insurance deductible. Difference is me financing this whole setup and still being told my children need to make themselves smaller so your son never feels left out. Silence. Real silence, money, once dragged into the light, ruins a lot of family theater. Rhea went pale. Jace looked stunned. Iris looked startled. Nolan just looked angry. I had never laid it out that plainly in front of all of them before. Maybe I should have, because children notice imbalance long before adults stop denying it. Rhea said, "You're throwing money in my face." "No," I said. "I'm removing the camouflage." The thing about financial exploitation is that it rarely begins with one obvious demand. It starts with little leaks, temporary help, short-term coverage, a few extras here and there, a bill 1 month, a deposit the next, a request phrased like an inconvenience to even ask. When Rhea and I moved in together, we agreed to split expenses proportionally. I made more. Fine. That was fair. Then came the add-ons. Jace needed a better laptop. Jace needed gas money. Jace needed a tutor. Jace needed senior photos. Jace needed new basketball shoes because the other pair were not good enough. Jace needed money for a camp. Jace needed concert tickets because all his friends were going. Meanwhile, Iris asked for watercolor paper like she was requesting surgery. Nolan mowed lawns to save for a monitor and still asked me 3 times if it was okay to order it. One child had learned appetite. Mine were learning guilt. And every time I pushed back, Rhea had a line ready. "You know how important confidence is at his age. It's just this once. You're more comfortable financially." I thought we were a team. That last one was the best trick. People love to invoke teamwork when they are spending someone else's resources. Looking back, I can see all the signs. The time she suggested I not go overboard for Christmas because it would create comparisons. The time she hinted Nolan didn't need branded sneakers if Jace couldn't get the same. The time she called Iris sensitive after Jace mocked her drawings. The way any extra kindness I showed my own children somehow became a fairness issue, but anything I paid for Jace was just helping the family. I should have ended it then. But I did what a lot of exhausted adults do. I kept telling myself not to be dramatic. I kept calling it stress. I kept mistaking my usefulness for my place in the relationship. That ended in my living room with a stolen backpack and a stupid Instagram caption. "Bring everything down," I said again. This time I was looking at Rhea, not Jace. Because yes, he was a problem. But he was a teenager operating inside permission someone else had built. She was the adult. She was the one who chose this. Finally, she turned to him and said, "Go get it." He muttered, "Mom, now." He stomped upstairs and came back with the backpack, the phone boxes, and one sad chocolate sleeve with only a few pieces left. Nolan stared at it. "Did you seriously already eat most of that?" Jay shrugged. "I was hungry." Nolan put both hands up. "Sorry, I forgot. Grand theft burns calories." I took the items and checked them. The bag was fine. One phone box had been opened. The other had greasy fingerprints on it that made me see religion. I held out my hand. The phones. Jace blinked. "Those are the boxes." I just stared. Then I looked at Rhea. She closed her eyes for a second. Jace. He reached into his hoodie pocket and then his jeans and produced both phones, one in each hand, like a raccoon reluctantly surrendering shiny objects. Nolan muttered, "Raccoon in sunglasses." That almost ended me, because it was so stupid and so accurate that for one broken second, I had to bite the inside of my cheek, not to laugh. Iris saw the phones and flinched. That did it. I turned to my kids. Go get overnight bags. Rhea stared. What? We're leaving. You are not taking this that far. I looked at her with the kind of calm that only arrives when anger has already become certainty. Oh, I said, I absolutely am. This is our home. I laughed once, quietly. Interesting, because it was my children's home too, until you decided their things were transferable. Don't do this in front of them, she hissed. Do what? React to the thing you just did in front of them? Nolan was already moving. Iris followed without a word. Jace said, This is insane. I looked at him. You posted your confession in a carousel. You should probably sit the next part out. For once, he shut up. Rhea followed me into our bedroom while I packed. You are blowing up our life over gifts. I pulled a suitcase from the closet. No. I'm ending a system that finally stopped pretending. What is that supposed to mean? It means this is not about one night. She folded her arms. You're being dramatic. I zipped a pocket and looked at her. You gave my children's gifts to your son because he wanted them more. You keep saying it like that. How else would you like me to say it? She had no answer because there was no flattering version of what she'd done. I made a mistake, she said. No, I said. You made a choice. It was one choice. I laughed then. One? And before she could answer, I gave her the list. The time Jace mocked Nolan's thrift store jacket and you said he was joking. The time he called Iris's art space a craft landfill. The time you asked me not to overdo birthdays because it would make him feel bad. The time I paid for his laptop, his fees, his trip, and somehow still got told I was creating imbalance. The time you suggested I tone down Christmas for my own children because Jace notices things. That is not what I said. It is exactly what you said. You just dressed it up better. Her voice hardened. So now I'm the villain. No, I said. Now you're visible. That hit. Then came the line I knew she would use. You always turn money into power. I stopped folding and looked at her. There is a very specific kind of rage that comes from being used financially, and then accused of weaponizing money the first time you stop. No, I said quietly. I turn money into groceries, school fees, repairs, and roofs. Tonight, I'm turning it into a boundary. She stared. What does that mean? I pulled out my phone. I showed her. I sat on the edge of the bed, opened my banking app, and started making changes. The monthly transfer into our shared household account? Removed. The scheduled payment for Jace's summer enrichment program, which I had agreed to fund, canceled. The automatic contribution tied to groceries and utilities through my side? Paused. Not recklessly, not illegally, not with drama, just cleanly. Tap confirmation screen, done. Her face changed with each one. Melvin. Tap, stop, tap. This affects everyone. I looked up. Yes, you can't do this because you're angry. I'm not doing it because I'm angry. Final confirmation. I'm doing it because I'm clear. I held up the phone so she could see the last screen. I'm not your backup bank, I said, and I won't fund a family that treats my children like optional members. That was the boundary. Simple. Calm. Long overdue. She looked shocked. Not heartbroken, not sorry. Shocked, because the real emergency in her mind was access ending. That told me more than any apology could have. We left at 9:26 p.m., I remember, because on nights like that, your brain starts taking timestamps as if you are already writing witness statements for yourself. The kids got in the car with their bags. I had the gifts back. I had one suitcase, my laptop, important papers, and the cold, steady feeling of finally knowing I was done. Nobody spoke at first. Then Iris asked, very softly, did I do something wrong? That question will split a parent open. No, I said immediately. Absolutely not. Then why did she give my bag away? I gripped the wheel harder. There are times to soften the truth for children. This was not one of them. Because she made a selfish decision, I said. And because I should have stopped this sooner. Iris looked out the window. From the back seat, Nolan said, I knew he was going to try something. I looked in the mirror. You did? He was hovering the second you said phones. A beat. Then he added, also, He has the vibe of a raccoon in sunglasses. That broke the tension just enough. I laughed. Iris made a tiny laugh too. And thank God for that, because humor kept the whole night from turning into one solid bruise. You are not wrong, I said. Nolan folded his arms. I'm never wrong about people with ring light energy. We checked into a hotel near my salon. Nothing fancy, just clean, safe, and equipped with one sofa bed, Nolan declared, an attack on the spine. We ordered fries, chicken tenders, salad, and cheesecake the size of a hubcap. Then, because I refused to let the night end on theft, I did what I had meant to do at home. I gave them their gifts properly. I handed Iris the backpack. She touched the strap very carefully. It's really mine? That question hurt more than the theft. Yes, I said. It was always yours. Then I gave Nolan the chocolates and both of them their phones. He opened the box and said, I suddenly forgive airports. Iris laughed. For a few minutes, it felt right. Then my phone started exploding. Texts from Ria. Come home and stop punishing everyone. Jace is upset. You embarrassed him. We need to talk like adults. You're overreacting. Nolan glanced over while eating cheesecake. Is she actually centering the burglar? I covered my mouth. Do not call him the burglar. He posted evidence. That's amateur burglar behavior. Iris started laughing again. And that mattered. Not because the situation was funny, because their humiliation was not getting the last word. The next morning, I handled the practical work. Real breakups are administrative. Nobody says that in love songs, but it is true. At 7, before the kids woke up, I sat at the little hotel desk with stale coffee and made a list. Attorney, shared account access, utilities, school contacts, phone lines, property retrieval, temporary rental. Then I started. I emailed an attorney I knew through a client. I called the bank. I rerouted my commission overflow. I changed passwords. I updated school emergency contacts. I made sure the new phones were fully under my account. I texted Ria one message. I will communicate in writing for now. Do not contact the kids. Do not remove or destroy any of my property. I will arrange collection. That was it. She responded with a flood. Anger, guilt, pleading, self-pity. One of them actually said, I can't believe you do this after everything we built. Built. Interesting word for a structure, balanced on my card information. Then her sister called. Then one of her friends. Then, unbelievably, Jace's mostly absent father, who had apparently discovered concern the second my money exited the story. I answered none of them. Around noon, my cousin Theo called. Every family needs a Theo. Not because he fixes everything, because he says the truth in a way that keeps you from losing your mind. When I told him what happened, he was quiet for 3 seconds. Then he said, so she Robin Hooded your kids, except stupidly and in reverse. I closed my eyes. That is one version. She stole from actual children and gave the loot to a 17-year-old with influencer eyebrows. Do you need help moving your stuff? Yes, that question mattered. Because everybody else wanted emotion, explanation, or surrender. Theo wanted logistics. Yes, I said. I do. Done, he said. Also, for the record, if anybody touched my imported chocolate, I'd be on the news. That made me laugh in the middle of the hotel lobby while a stranger walked by holding a waffle maker. It was absurd. It helped. 2 days later, Theo came with me to get the rest of my things. I had arranged it in writing. I had given notice. I had requested no scenes. Ria was waiting in the foyer in cashmere and indignation. Theo leaned toward me and whispered, she dressed like a tasteful hostage negotiator. I nearly lost it. We kept moving. My clothes, my office supplies, my professional scissors, the espresso machine I paid for, the cookware set, the framed drawings from Iris, my files, my color books. Ria followed us from room to room. You're really doing this? Yes. So that's it? 3 years gone? No, I said. 3 years clarified. Theo, carrying a lamp, said quietly, that was excellent. She glared at him. Why are you here? He smiled. To make sure nobody accidentally regifts a toaster. When we reached the kitchen, she tried again. It was a mistake, she said. No, I said. It became a mistake when it cost you something. Before that, it was a choice. That's cruel. Cruel was letting my daughter see her gift on your son's Instagram. She flinched. Then, because she still could not help herself, she said, Jace feels hated. There it was, still, even now. Her son remained the center of the narrative. Not Iris, not Nolan, not the house, not the relationship, just Jace. I looked at her. That is no longer my problem, I said. And for the first time in years, it was true. The fallout was not cinematic. No police, no public screaming, no dramatic confrontations in rain. Real fallout is financial and exhausting. Rhea had to start covering what I had been quietly carrying. The wedding plans collapsed because, yes, I had paid most of the early deposits. Jace lost the summer program, the extras, the steady stream of upgrades he had come to treat like weather. The household shrank to the size it had always actually been able to support. And once that happened, the messages changed tone. At first, she was furious, then guilty, then practical. We can work this out. This is too permanent for one argument. The kids need stability. You know I can't cover everything right now. That one nearly made me laugh. Imagine detonating a household and then using your own budget shortfall as proof that the person you hurt should return. I stayed calm. I stayed in writing. I let the attorney handle what needed handling. And while the adults sorted paperwork, my kids adjusted faster than I did. That hurt in its own way, because children who adjust quickly to peace were carrying more stress than you knew. We rented a townhouse near my salon. It had beige carpet, slightly crooked blinds, and kitchen cabinets that looked tired enough to need emotional support. It was perfect because it was ours. I let Iris choose her room first. Nolan got the bigger room and said, "At last, a kingdom built on emotional ruin." I said, "Do your homework." He said, "In my kingdom?" I said, "Especially there." Theo helped move furniture and declared flat pack shelves, revenge disguised as home goods. There was laughter almost immediately. Not because we were fine, because relief makes people funny. The first Friday night there, I burned grilled cheese, dropped a bag of salad, and discovered the upstairs shower only worked if you turned the knob like you were disarming a bomb. Nolan leaned in the doorway and said, "This place feels structurally unserious." I pointed a spatula at him. Pay rent or stop reviewing the property. Iris sat at the table wearing her backpack, not going anywhere, just wearing it around the house. I pretended not to notice. Then she caught me smiling. "I just like it," she said. "I know." She hesitated, then asked, "Are you mad at me for not saying anything that night?" I sat down. "No," I said. "I'm mad at myself for not ending it sooner." She looked down. "I thought if I acted easy, people liked me more." That sentence nearly took me out. Because it was not about the bag. It was about the whole year, the whole house, the way children start shrinking when adults make affection conditional. I leaned closer. "The right people do not need you to be smaller to stay comfortable," I said. She nodded once. Then Nolan from the kitchen doorway said, "Also, for the record, anyone who steals your bag has terrible moral architecture." We both looked at him. He shrugged. "I'm helping." And somehow, he was. About a month later, I met Rhea one last time. Public place, daytime. No kids. She looked tired. Not transformed, not destroyed. Just tired in the way people look when they have finally had to do their own math. "I never thought you'd leave like that," she said. I stirred my coffee. "That was part of the problem. Meaning. Meaning you built too much around the assumption that I would keep absorbing it." She looked down. Then, of course, she said, "Jace is having a really hard time." Even then. Still, I said, "I'm not discussing Jace before my children. You always make things black and white." I looked at her for a long second. Then I said, "You gave my children's gifts to your son because he wanted them. It is black and white. You were the one trying to decorate it." That landed. I slid the final settlement summary across the table. House. Repayment terms. End of shared obligations. Clean. Then I said the sentence I should have found much earlier. "I'm not your backup bank," I said, "and I won't fund a family my kids aren't fully part of." That was it. No speech, no tears, no performance, just a boundary and a calm voice. She signed later through counsel. And that was the end. The quiet closure came in October. Iris had an art show at school. Nothing fancy. Folding tables, fluorescent lights, stale cookies, parents trying to look interested in all children equally. Nolan came straight from practice. Theo came in a scarf that made him look like a substitute French teacher with unresolved opinions. Iris had a piece on display. At the center of it was a painted backpack. Not exact, not branded, just unmistakably hers. Around it were stars, bits of tissue paper, pencil sketches, and small hands reaching back toward it. The title card said, "Things that came back to me." I had to walk away for a minute because I was not about to cry beside a tray of grocery store brownies under cafeteria lighting. When I came back, Nolan was standing beside the piece. He leaned toward me and said, "If Jace were here, he'd probably call this commentary on consumerism." Theo nodded solemnly, and he'd still be wrong. Iris rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Then she slipped her arm through mine and stood there while people admired her work. None of them knew the whole story. They did not need to. The symbol was enough. Something taken, something returned. Something transformed by the person who survived it. That night, we got pizza and ate it on the floor because I still had not bought a proper dining table, and nobody cared. Nolan raised his soda and said to not living with raccoons in sunglasses. Iris laughed so hard she snorted. I raised my slice and said, "To houses where your things stay yours." And that was it. Not revenge, not triumph. Just safety, respect. The quiet miracle of not having to brace yourself in your own home. Looking back, I know a few things for sure. Money does not create entitlement, but it reveals it quickly. Children notice every time you ask them to swallow unfairness, so adults can keep pretending a situation is healthy. And the calmest boundary is often the strongest one, because it does not need applause. I did not need a louder exit. I needed a cleaner one. I also learned that humor matters not because pain is funny, because one ridiculous observation at the right moment can stop shame from becoming the only language in the room. My son calling that boy a raccoon in sunglasses saved part of that night. My daughter wearing her backpack around the new townhouse like reclaimed territory saved another part. And me finally saying no in full sentences saved the rest. So if this story has any value, it is this. Do not keep funding spaces that diminish your children. Do not confuse being useful with being loved. And never stay engaged to someone who thinks he liked it more is a valid transfer policy. That is not family. That is theft with better lighting.